Hello and welcome to another edition of Spotlight here on Catholic Trends. As you already know, this is the base where we set the pace in conversations around the church as a missionary here in Ghana and beyond. My name is Ernest Senanudovlo. I'm excited to come your way once again with today's edition. And today we are talking about an initiative that started after the 1994 conflict here in the Yendi enclave. Now, this initiative was started by now Emeritus Bishop Vincent Sowaboinai SVD. This institution has now transitioned into a fully fledged, trusted Catholic institution that is noted for peace building, good governance, migration, and now they also do climate change initiatives as well. I am talking to the director of the center today in the person of Father Michael Cobb. But before that, if you are interested in sponsoring this program, I would urge that you reach out to our producer on 050-777-6573. If you are outside Ghana, please do add the country code and you can reach us on WhatsApp. Or you can also send an email via catholictrends@gmail.com and we'll gladly respond to that email. I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Spotlight here on Catholic Trends. As I already told you, my guest is someone who calls himself a Catholic servant from Bimbilla. Father, you're most welcome to the show. Why do you call yourself a Catholic servant from Bimbilla?
Supposed to see myself as a servant. The reason I call myself a Catholic servant, so that I will not forget of that initial inspiration that I have about Jesus. I want to, in my ministry, in my life, in my daily interactions, in my daily dealings with everyone, I'm supposed to be a servant.
So how did you get involved with peace building issues around conflict and all that? How did you get involved with that?
Yes. First and foremost, I belong to the Catholic Diocese of Yendi. The diocese of the communities within the Diocese of Yendi have had a long-standing history of conflicts. Before the creation of the diocese, the worst of ethnic conflict happened here. And when the diocese was created, the church took as part of its initiative to be very much involved in peace negotiations, peace prevention, and dialogue sessions among the parties in dispute. Already, the background of the diocese that I have chosen to work was already involved in peace initiatives and conflict mediation efforts. Now, immediately after my ordination, the parish that I was posted, my first parish, which is Bimbilla, the reason I call myself Catholic servant from Bimbilla,
I see.
was also immediately after my appointment 2012, they experienced a violent chieftaincy succession conflict there that led to the murder of one of the chieftaincy candidates. So the area was, the government then imposed a state of emergency, which we usually call curfew in the area. So my very few months after ordination I witnessed what conflict meant. Our mission house, the parties in dispute, some ran into our mission house. Some even used the walls of our mission house as protection to be able to attack their enemy. I saw people holding guns live with my own eyes. I saw my neighbors pick guns and trying to shoot another person. So that kept me thinking that this area that the bishop has sent me to come and work, and he is already involved in this work, do I only just limit myself to Sunday Mass, and as you rightly have said, other efforts that the church is engaged in? So the experience of seeing my neighbors, the people I know, the people I'm sent to work, engage in gun battle, kept me thinking very deep. So In one of the interactions when the bishop came, I was part of the delegation to lead him visit those who were affected in the conflict, particularly women and children, houses that were burnt. We moved around almost all the neighborhoods to see where the conflicts have the effects of the conflict have left scars, and the destruction that took place, and the impoverishment that it has brought about to the people. So that kept me, as I said, thinking very deep. So it didn't come to me as a surprise that in one of the discussions with the bishop, then he mentioned to me that he feels that he wants me to be involved in the work that he's doing, that I get involved to see how we can approach the work he's doing from a scientific point of view, from a more systematic way of doing it and all that. But before coming, he wants me to get myself in a formal training.
Okay.
I mean, within the context of a university,
Okay.
to do a master's program in peace building.
Okay.
So that's how the journey started.
So you did masters in peace building where?
Yes, I did my master's in peace building at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center in Accra.
Okay.
2014, 2015. 2013, 2014. Yeah, then I graduated in 2015.
And so after that, have you had any other education in peace building?
Yes.
Governance?
Yes, so after the master's program, I came to be involved in the peace initiatives in the Yendi Peace Center, which he has established. I'm sure with time we'll go to talk about the Yendi Peace Center. Then I worked for 3 years. Then in 2017, I left the shores of Ghana to Germany to read a PhD program in conflict management, focusing on chieftaincy succession disputes, how traditional leadership governance, how traditional leadership governance can contribute to peace and also become sources of conflict themselves.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are not only talking to a priest, we are talking to an expert in conflict management. Father, we are excited that you took time off your busy schedule to have this conversation with us. But you, in your initial comment, you have mentioned that the center was already in existence before your bishop asked you to come to assist here.
Yeah.
And so that tells me that this center has been in existence even before you coming on board.
Yeah.
What prompted the formation of this center?
Yeah. Good. It's a long history, but I will try to make things short.
Right.
The Yendi and his communities experienced the worst of violent conflict in the whole of the country, Ghana, in 1994, 1995, of which several people lost their lives, led to the relocation, displacements of communities, displacement of people, and of course the impoverishment of the local community. Very vibrant community members, people who were working in the education, the health sector and all that, relocated. So Yendi was a deserted area. So fast down the line in 1999, when the diocese was created, the then elected bishop, Most Reverend Vincent Sowaboina, SVD.
Permit me to take you back a bit. What brought about this misunderstanding or conflict?
Okay. The conflict was between the Konkomba and the Basari on the one hand, and the Dagumbas and the Gunjas on the other hand. In northern Ghana, we have what we call the centralized chieftaincy system, dating back to colonial's time. The centralized communities or ethnic groups with centralized chieftaincy structures were used by the colonials as their point of entry, ease of access to the people, and to help them in their governance.
Right.
So ethnic groups that already had chiefs before the coming of colonials were used, their structures were used for ease of entry to the communities and also to facilitate their administration, as I have said. So in northern Ghana, we have some ethnic groups that have this centralized chieftaincy structure. The Mamprusis, the Dagumbas, the Gonjas. These are the ones, and the Nanumbas. These four are the ones that have the central recognized centralized chieftaincy structure in northern Ghana before the coming of the colonials. So when the colonials arrived in the country, as I mentioned, they decided to use them. What they did, that of which we are feeling the effect today, is that they brought all the other ethnic groups that didn't have this centralized chieftaincy system. They had their leaders, but not centralized, not organized, centralized system like the ones I've just listed. So they brought all of them to be under those who already do these structures that had this very functionalized system to be able to control and to be able to have ease of access to all the communities. So this arrangement of bringing all other ethnic groups under the subjugation of other ethnic groups has become a source of contention even till date. And unfortunately for us, successive governments have not really looked into this matter adequately, i.e., all ethnic groups having access to the institutionalized chieftaincy arrangements that exist in Ghana. And whether we like it or not today, chiefs have become very relevant. To be able to lobby for development, to be able to lobby for improvement for your communities, you need to have a chief, first and foremost, who will rally all his citizens, all the natives around him for unity, for sense of purpose, and for togetherness.
Right.
And of course, be able to lobby also for development, to reduce their pains, and to be able to bring about change, significant changes to their communities. Because the centralized government is unable to be present everywhere. So in several rural communities in Ghana, the presence of the central government is often not found. So the only relevant institution that the people are comfortable to work with is the chieftaincy system.
Right.
So chiefs have become relevant in this regard. So because of that, ethnic groups hitherto that did not have chiefs, all today will want to have their own chief, who they all rally around for unity, for development, and also for that sense of identity. And the chieftaincy in these problems, if you want to talk about it, it may take us long.
Right.
So, but the point is that this conventional power arrangement, when it comes to the institution of chieftaincy in Ghana and access of all ethnic groups, or the hitherto non-centralized chieftaincy ethnic groups to have access to this institutionalized structure, and their inability to have access and to have their own chiefs and to be recognized in the institutionalized system that the Ghanaian the Ghanaian institution, like the Ghanaian constitution has defined for chiefs or have given recognition for chiefs, is what has caused the problems that we had in 1995 and even till date.
You mentioned in passing that the conflict brought about poverty and all that. Are you able to tell us or paint a vivid picture, the extent of the destruction that this conflict caused?
Like several other conflicts that has happened all over the world, source of livelihoods were destroyed. I can speak for our churches from the point of view of our church structures. We had a very strong clinic that was taking care of everyone, was destroyed. There was a borehole water facility that we had for drilling of boreholes. This offered employment, not just only the provision of potable water or making sure that people get quality drinking water, but also offered employment to people. And of course, employment brings about income. All this was destroyed. The working people who were here, citizens that were here, left Yendi. Market no longer took place because a state of emergency was declared by the government, the curfew. You had to work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or to 4 p.m. So no economic activity took place. No buying and selling. People couldn't easily travel far to sell their goods and to return because their safety was not assured. Of course, that have a significant effect on the daily life of people. That have a significant effect on the economic returns. So that is the cost of conflict.
I have heard that the church had a very good relationship with the locals and all that through the work of Bishop Emeritus. Why then would they target structures and institutions built by the church offering services to the people?
Yes, the church, even till date or till then, was the only government that people knew in terms of the provision of quality goods, quality water, potable drinking water, good schools, good clinics. I mean, whatever made life bearable.
Okay.
The church was involved in that. But you see, the church has a following. Wherever we find our presence, our aim is to proclaim the gospel of Jesus and that those who accept will convert. And the Yendi and its surroundings, particularly in the rural communities, large numbers are adherents to the traditional religion, that's Africa traditional religion.
Okay.
Animists, if you like. People who have not yet professed faith either in Islam or Christian. So the church was working with groups in the rural communities. Fortunately, large following of these numbers who converted to Catholicism belonged to one of the dominant ethnic groups at the time that was in conflict with the other, i.e. the Konkomba. The Konkombas were the ones who accepted Christianity and converted in their large numbers. Whereas before even the coming of Christianity, already before 200 years ago or 400 years ago, Islam was already very well rooted in northern Ghana. And of course, chiefs at the time, the centralized ethnic groups that I've mentioned, their chiefs embraced Islam. So the entire household and the entire natives, subjects at the time, had to go along with their chief. So all centralized ethnic groups in northern Ghana have a very strong leaning or have a very strong affiliation to Islam. They already had converted to Islam before the coming of Christianity. So the church was well accepted at the time, even though it was a Muslim territory, strong Muslim territory, yet we still found converts among the large groupings that did not belong to Islam. So fast down the line, those who belong to our faith, those are the Konkomba, and of course those who welcomed us and gave us the land and gave us the place to evangelize was the Dagomba ethnic group. So that cordiality existed between the church's structures and the traditional governance structure represented by the Dagomba ethnic group. The cordiality existed very fine. We had a very good working relationship until when the conflict happened. So naturally, adherents of Christianity will often run wherever in the world, will run to the mission houses, will run to where the priests stay, the Catholic facility for safety and for protection. But this gesture of coming to the Catholic facility for protection and for safety was not seen in this regard. It was seen more that the church was offering not just only protection, but also support to its large following, who were the Konkumba at the time. Support not in terms of protection, but support in terms of weaponry, even offering them strategies on how to attack their enemy, the Dagomba at the time. So that made the neutrality of the church in that time to erode. The church's neutrality was eroded at the time. They accused the church of being at the side of one, as offering support to one side of the parties in dispute, that was the Kokumba. The reason for which the Catholic facilities were attacked, were destroyed, were vandalized. But let's put this on record. when the parties in dispute vandalized the Catholic facilities, suspecting that weapons were stored in the Catholic facilities, i.e. our mission houses, in order that we give this as support for their opponents, that is the Konkumba, to attack the Dagomba. Thorough searches were done. Not even a single weapon was discovered. But then the destruction have already taken place.
Has already been caused.
How our cathedral was desecrated, our vehicles, clinic, as I said, was destroyed. A sisters' convent who were working in the clinic was destroyed. Water facility, as I mentioned, for the provision of quality potable water was destroyed. But when the search was done by the parties in dispute, I mean the aggrieved youth acting on their own or acting on behalf of others, they didn't even find a single weapon.
And what was their reaction?
Well, as usually it will always happen in such situation, they were acting in anger. Once you're angry and you act, and later on you realize that your anger really was not very well founded. But as human as we are, we just let that go and try to see how far we can mobilize and deploy effort to restore what was destroyed. Is the reason for which the bishop said, okay, they have done this to us, they have destroyed our facilities, they were acting in anger, they were angry, they were acting with suspicion, they were convinced within themselves that we were parties to the conflict, but we have been vindicated. They didn't get evidence for their anger, for their grievances and all that. Let's mobilize effort to make sure that we bridge bridges. We use our objectivity. We may not be neutral, but we will always be objective. We will use our objectivity, the trust that we have had before, and of course, the acceptance what we have had before, to see how far we can patch bridges. So he took upon himself this initiative of bringing the Konkumbes and the Dagumbes together in order that they can find a neutral ground, a neutral space to be able to find amicable solutions to the grievances that led to the violent confrontation in the area.
If you are still tuned in, you are watching us on Spotlight. This is Spotlight on Catholic Trends. And like you already know, this is the base where we set the pace when it comes to conversations around the church as a missionary here in Ghana and beyond. Today I am speaking with the director of the Yendi Peace Center, which is a Catholic institution introduced to broker peace within the Yendi enclave. And my guest has been talking to me about the history, the conflict. We are now trying to move on to what the work of the center has been. So Father, talk to us about what we have been doing as a center to ensure that what happened does not happen again.
Good. So as I said earlier, the bishop deployed all effort within his means to be able to resolve the conflict, to bring the parties in dispute to dialogue among themselves. He was doing this until 2001, when the overlord, the head chief of the Dagomba ethnic group, was murdered in cold blood together with 40 of his elders in his palace. So here again, a state of emergency was declared in Yendi. Instability, Yendi became unstable. Several people again have to flee Yendi, and Yendi was making headlines. So at the time, Yendi became the headquarters, so to say, of violent conflict. So the bishop have to deploy effort, as I said, now to the intra-conflict between the Dagomba ethnic group itself, because now relative peace had returned to Yendi, because the Konkumbes had returned, or all those who left Dagombes who also left Konkumba communities also returned. Life returned to normal. School children were seen to be going to school. Hospital staff were at post and all that. So relative peace was very much evident in Yendi at the time, until the murder of the head chief of the Dagomba ethnic group took place. So all efforts have to be gunned towards the restoration of peace once more to Yendi because of the state of emergency the government at the time had declared. So we, Bishop and in the group of people who we worked with, let me also register he wasn't doing all this alone. He worked with Islamic clerics, traditional rulers were part of the team. So from Bishop Peace Initiative for Kongomba Dagomba, it now became Dagbon Peace Initiative for the restoration of peace among the Dagomba ethnic groups, among the two families that fought among themselves, the Abudu and the Andane. These are the families within the chieftaincy parlance, they're called gates, that rotate among themselves to occupy the top skin for the Dagomba ethnic group, as I said. So he held close to 150 meetings. All meetings took place in his house. So at the time, the parties in dispute themselves, representatives of the Abudus and the Andanis themselves, voiced out that they felt that it was really not the best of situations that all meetings took place in the bishop's house. They felt for the insecurity of the bishop. The bishop himself could be targeted. His house could easily become an insecurity area, a security zone. His house was securitarized, so to say. So the suggestion became very clear that there was a need for a structure outside of the vicinity of his house, outside of his premises. So then the idea that came that instead of just having only an initiative, why don't we institutionalize this initiative? The initiative of bringing parties to dispute, having an avenue where we talk, and also to document what we're doing.
Okay.
Coordinate it so that we coordinate all peace effort in Yendi, so that we have a systematized response to the situation in Yendi. It was then that the idea that to establish a Yendi Peace Center was born. So the Yendi Peace Center was established with a legal status in 2007, with the bishop as the patron, with other Islamic clerics and traditional rulers, as I said, being members of the board. So it was registered, and their work basically was to make sure that the parties in dispute, that's the Abudus and the Danis, are able to resolve their matter, and eventually a successor to the murdered chief could be found. And through the efforts they deployed in the year 2018, a substantive Yana among the Dagomba ethnic group, the head chief is called Yana, like the Ashanti Hene, that his title proper is Yana. So he was skinned, and proper governance among the traditional leadership structure since then have taken place. So we begin to see Yendi coming back to its normalcy, restoring, reconstructing, and restoring and reconstructing. Of course, the Yendi Peace Center is deploying all efforts within our means to be part of this restoration and this reconstructing effort of Yendi and its communities.
We started as an initiative trying to broker peace within between two groups or ethnic groups.
Yes, please.
And then we transitioned
into an institution
to trying to broker peace among people who belong to the same ethnic group. Then we moved from there to become an institution, trying to ensure that we have sustained peace in an environment that promotes economic activity and all that. Now we can say that there is relative peace in Yendi. I've been here for some time and
You've
nothing
not heard
has
of any
happened to me.
gunshot.
Yes, so why don't we just close up and leave? Why do we still have the center here? Your work is done. Why don't we just close up?
I wish I could just say so, and the reality could be so. Peace, eternal, is a sustainable peace cannot be achieved within a time frame. And what we expect, we always say, we're doing conflict management. Complete resolution of conflict can never take place. We always have conflict management. We continue to manage your conflict. So there's not, people talk about conflict resolution. Yeah, okay. It exists as a term, a theory, okay. But in reality, we manage conflict. We can never forever nip conflict in the bud. We continue to manage them. So it's the reason for which the Yendi Peace Center is still needed to help the communities manage their conflict. Of course, the issues are not fully addressed, have not been adequately or completely addressed, particularly among the different ethnic groups that live here. The distant causes, what all of us will always say, the root causes of the 1985 conflict have not yet been addressed. Okay. So we still have, from time to time, social media spreading messages of imminent conflict between the Konkombes and the Dagombes, because one group still feels that the access to the traditional structure, the chieftaincy governance structure, we've not yet been allowed. Ownership and control and access to land have not yet been fully addressed. Issues like that are still often visiting the area. Is the reason for which the Yendi Peace Center, in our visitations, in our interactions, in our early warning signals that we gather, we try to see how far we use our neutrality and create a space for the parties in dispute to be able to resolve their conflict. It will interest you to know, for 2 years ago, there was severe rumors in the communities here of an imminent violent conflict that was to take place. We did not go to sleep. We had to contact almost all the influential individuals from both ethnic groups, and that culminated in the formation of an inter-ethnic peace team or peace committee, okay, composing of very respected individuals from both groups, that is the Konkomba and the Dagomba, and they are the ones who we deploy wherever we get signals or early warning signals in any of the communities there's an imminent danger. And here again, sometimes when issues happen or when there is disagreement between two individuals, and one happen to be a Konkomba and one happen to be a Dagomba, many often a time it's not seen as a communal disagreement. It's not often seen as a disagreement between two individuals. Often it's given ethnic coloration. And so when that happens, you find people blindly supporting the person who they share ethnic group with. And if that is not well controlled, it can easily explode.
So what are the specific actions that you are taking in this regard?
So as I have said, we have been able to form the inter-ethnic peace team who are working together. They are the ones who we are engaging. We are giving them capacity building. We are equating their skills in mediation so that they are able to be the ones who will resolve problems on their own, independently of our support. And they are the ones who are doing it in their communities, offering local solutions to local problems. And we are monitoring to see that that is done. And we are also creating that avenue for strong network between the official security, the police, the military, the BNI, and this inter-ethnic peace team, so that they can work together to see to it that we don't do firefighting, but we engage more in prevention. So our interest is more prevent. Don't wait until the conflict have taken place. Lives have been lost, properties have been destroyed, and now you come as a delegation. I just hate to see that on the news. Signs are often clear. If we do not do A, B, C, D, 3, 4, 5 will happen. But oftentimes we sit and look on until it's happened. Then the delegation, high-powered delegation, as we often call it, will come all the way from Accra, waste taxpayers' money, fly all the way to Tamale, and V8s will bring them to Yendi. I mean, do we need to continue to do that? Is the reason I think that we have to deploy effort, build the capacity of the locals themselves to be able to manage and to prevent conflicts from happening.
I see that aside your mainstay, which is the conflicts management and all that, you are also involved in issues of migration, climate. How do these come to connect?
We have realized that at the bottom of all these conflicts is, we trace it to poverty is the trigger
Okay.
of all this conflict. The hungry man is
So
an angry man. When people are angry, bread and butter matters. People are, and unemployment is still on higher rates. Highly qualified individuals, yet they do not have jobs to do. People have gone in the training, but they cannot establish themselves. There are vast farmlands, but young people, young women are not supported to go into agriculture. The effects of climate change is very evident. Look at the heat, so hot. We are around, it's just 1 o'clock or so. It's not yet 1 o'clock yet, but it is as if we are around 3 p.m. or so. The heat, this is October, at least we should be having some rains, but it's very dry. The drought is so severe. Animals will have to walk far distances to get water. In several communities, access to good water is still a problem. The communities are fighting with the farmer heads because of water. And here again, the fight here is about fight over access and control of arable lands. But we just say they are fighting over land. Arable land, their source of livelihood is what people want to protect. It's what people want to make sure that they grow it. It promotes their sustenance. Things like that have not yet been fully addressed. So the Yendi Peace Center want to see how far can we help address these daily livelihood struggles, helping young women who have learned trades to be able to establish themselves, helping young men who want to work be able to get some start capital, some capitals to be able to establish themselves, help rural farmers, women to be able to engage in agriculture, good agricultural techniques, how to save, how to manage the little resources that they have, how to encourage the protection of the few forests that we have. It's critical that we do that. Very soon, the dry season is setting up. When you go, when you travel along the road, people are just burning the bush. Who is responsible for making sure that this do not happen? Each year that happens, do we always need to be looking on? You move on the streets of Yendi, very dirty. See a lot of plastics all over. When it rains, they block places. There are floods sometimes. The rains are reducing. What do we do? So things like that. Instead of just complaining and waiting for the government is already overburdened. The government have to pay over several thousands of workers, have to make sure that electricity is given to every rural community. Every rural community get good hospitals. Can the government alone do that? Is the reason the Yendi Peace Center, together as a church institution, Catholic institution, try to see how far can we complement government efforts. I mean, contributing to also become a government in the rural communities wherever we find ourselves in terms of the delivery of public goods.
And let's be clear that you're not saying the Catholic Church is trying to become the government of Ghana.
We are complementing. Let's put it that way. We are complementing the government's efforts.
So in the area of migration, what exactly are you doing?
Yes, so because of the endemic poverty situation of northern Ghana, very unattractive, had very little employment opportunities, temperatures are very high, climate change effect is exacerbating the poverty. Not so many good schools are found here. So the motivation for younger people to stay is very less.
Okay.
The reason migration to the south is very high, and even through Libya, then to Europe and Americas. A lot of the young people, as I've just mentioned, who may think do not have anything, but they save from the little resources. They galvanize support from their families to be able to travel through Libya. Several people die in the boats, as we see in the news. Several of them come from this area. You go to Accra, Agbogbloshie Market. You go to Makola Market. Several of the people you see there are from the communities from this enclave. They are living in their thousands because the motivation to stay at home is less. What do we do? So the Yendi Peace Center try to see how far can we make the area motivating enough for the younger people to stay. And those who stay, what do we do in order that they stay? They are able to find sustenance for themselves. That is what we deploy an effort now to make sure that we get those who have learned trades and they do not have the resources to acquire what will let them put to practice what they have learned. We see how far we get them supported. We've supported so far about 110 women with industrial machines, and also those who are into hairdressing. We've also supported them with very good equipment, and we will turn our eyes to the men very soon. But the women, because of cultural and traditional practices, this is the patriarchal governance structure arrangement in northern Ghana, seem to nourish domination and relegation of women, particularly the girls. Is the reason we want to make them, women and girls, our focus, at least for some time. And when we see the success, then we can use that as guide to include also the males.
That's brilliant. I do not envy you at all. Your work is a difficult task. Are you able to tell us how challenging it's been for the center?
Yes. One of the challenges, as I said, sometimes our neutrality and our objectivity sometimes is often questioned. What is your interest at all? You are not from here. People are still doubting sometimes our interests, whether we are not for one group over the other. That alone. And if sometimes the very people that are deploying all efforts to support sometimes do not give you their cooperation. That is when there's a conflict, when there's a disagreement among the two, two groups, and you want to see to it that you offer all the support that is within your means to do so legitimately. Very often, we do not get the cooperation of the parties in dispute. We have to have frequent visits, frequent interactions until the acceptance and the willingness to cooperate with us is gotten. But of course, that over the years we'll be able to achieve some successes in that regard. But notwithstanding, we still have that difficulty as a challenge. So one challenge is significant is what I've just talked about is the cooperation from the parties in dispute themselves, the ostrich behavior, what I term ostrich. One of the ethnic groups here in Nanumba often said that it's very difficult to wake up a man who is pretending to be sleeping. Some members of the parties in dispute often behave as if they are sleeping, but they are not sleeping. So how to get them involved and to really have a clean path to achieving peace is often very difficult. And of course, resources everywhere is a problem. We are a very trusted and an objective ground. Our presence in almost every community in northern Ghana or around the enclave here is not in doubt. Everywhere people know us, and our work and the genuineness of the translating what we do in reality is not in doubt. It's verifiable. But yet, when you approach donors for support, very often you get disappointments. But that is not turning us down. That is not draining our energies. And of course, to get the motivated staff to work with, because of the endemic and the difficulties of Yendi, the Yendi name alone. Of course, peace has returned to Yendi. Relative peace is very evident. Yet, the skies of Yendi, the path of Yendi still follows. To get the requisite staff to come and work with us. The patriotism is losing among all of us. People are not willing to be that very patriotic. People are not very mindful that I need to leave a legacy. Oftentimes we are thinking about what do I get in return? How much payment will I get? Of course, it's justifiable. People have to take care of themselves. People have to eat. But the motivation to be patriotic, to serve, to be voluntarism and all that is very fast winning. Because of that, we have what we call the staff attrition. Staff often are not willing to work for a very long time. They work, improve upon their CVs, then they leave for other places. But since I took over my return in 2023, all the staff I've started with are still working with us, because before that was our problem. But I've tried to address that by having clearer conditions of service, significant improvement in staff remuneration, staff wages, so that staff are comfortable for us to have that long-term stay and be able to have a story together to share.
But I wouldn't want us to talk about your success stories, because all that you have shared, the success story is evident enough, and so I wouldn't want us to go there. But I'm sure that a lot of people are watching us all over the world.
Yeah.
And so if you have any need for anything, if you have need for anything, what would that be, and how do you want people to support this institution?
Well, going forward, I want to deploy efforts to see how we address the systemic issues in northern Ghana. One of it is the culture and tradition and the patriarchal governance arrangements, as I've mentioned, that seem to relegate women to the background, that seems to ignore women, that promotes the undervalue of women.
Okay.
How do we all deploy efforts to give a durable response to this tradition and culture? Witchcraft accusation is still very eminent here. Child marriage, forced marriage, early marriage is still very evident in several communities within the Yendi enclave. How do we together address that? That would be one. That is the culture and tradition.
Okay.
That together with the patriarchal governance arrangement that undervalue women, how do we systematically address that? It's critical for me. The number two will be that the production of peace citizens. I want us to deploy effort into targeting our school children. The school children, diversity is important. They need to accept that. To be Ghanaian is important. It's critical that Ghanaian understanding is embedded, is well seated in our school children. My visits, in my interaction with school children, what my senses tell me, my early warning signals I've gotten, we still have a lot of work to do in terms of uniting the school children who come from different ethnic groups, and they are going to school in the same school. They need to be one, not having secret meetings, not to be groups. You still have some ethnic associations in several of the schools. I want us to deploy effort to collapse all the ethnic
even at that level.
Yes, of course, they are very evident ethnic associations in schools. I mean, we need to collapse that and let patriotic associations be formed. Let's talk about the icons that have fought for our country, for the world. How can we form clubs that young people can be guided, can learn from that? So the production of peace citizens is critical for me in the schools, in the elementary schools, in the kindergartens even, the tertiary institutions, that we collapse all ethnic affiliated associations and groupings, cliques, and form, and that oneness be promoted there. Secondly, also, the third one will be the environment. Cleanliness. I want to appeal to the traditional rulers. Their voices are very strong. When they speak, everyone listen to them. Everyone follow what they say. I want to plead with them to deploy effort to see how far we can get our environment cleaned. You see gutters filled with plastics. People are selling food here. I mean, we don't need to wait for the government to come and help us do this. People are polluting the environment every day. I mean, the filth is very devastating. Very, very devastating. I'm not just speaking as one who have seen elsewhere where it is very clean. I mean, this is something we should ingrained within us. It should be ingrained among ourselves. And I want to appeal to the traditional rulers, as I said. Their voices are very strong. When they speak, what they say, people listen to them very well. They should look into that. Make Yendi clean. Green Yendi. Make Yendi clean attitude. Clean attitude and clean behavior. We need clean attitude and clean behavior. We need to clean that. Clean environment, clean attitude, and clean behavior. These three things are critical in what all efforts, all donor agencies that can assist us to have clean attitude, clean behavior, and clean environment. I'll be very grateful to co-partner them.
So how do people get in touch with you? Do you have a website? Any contact you want to leave?
Yes, we have a website, www.YNDP Center.org. We also have a Facebook page, Yendi Peace Center. If you go to Yendi Peace, if you go to Facebook, you can follow our activities, particularly about climate change and resilience efforts, restoration of degraded lands. Our cashew plantation projects that we also contributing to the greening of the world, carbon monoxide reduction, carbon efforts. You can follow that and to like us and to see what we're doing.
Okay, you want to leave a contact if someone wants to get in touch with you?
I think when they go to the Yendi Peace Center website,
okay,
all information about how one can contact us and also our Facebook, how one can contact us is there.
Final comments.
My final comment. Thanks, Catholic Strength, for making us known, for helping us to have that visibility. Hitherto, people have not, they are only heard about Yendi, and when they hear about Yendi, what they think about is often the negative. But when you were here for the 25th anniversary, you really brought about our visibility everywhere. I just pray that the visibility of the Yendi Peace Center, what we're doing, contributing to community peace and durability in the area here, reduction of suffering, will be promoted, and you will make us much more seen in the whole world. Thanks very much for this effort.
Thank you too, Father. We are grateful that you took time off your schedule to speak with us today on Spotlight.
Thanks.
So Father Michael Cobb is the director of the Yendi Peace Center, an initiative started by the Bishop Emeritus of this diocese, Most Reverend Vincent Sowa Boynai, SVD. And it's good to know that this initiative is actually being continued by the current bishop in the person of Most Reverend Matthew Yetiere. And I want to say that perhaps this should be part one of this conversation, and perhaps part two, we should be talking to the man who started all this. And I think that we need to start the processes of getting this man to be elected as a Nobel Peace Laureate. And I'm talking about Most Reverend Vincent Sowa Boynai, because whatever he's done here has been very instrumental as far as peace building and development is concerned in this area. But this is all time will permit on today's edition of Spotlight. Hopefully we'll come your way some other time with another exciting edition. But if you want to be a part of this program by way of sponsorship, you know how to get us. Send us an email, catholictrends@gmail.com. Follow us on all our social media platforms, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe so that whenever we drop anything new, you are among the first to get to know what is happening. Until I come your way again, please be good.